I'll see if I can lift this mirror out of the cradle. Now it's held down by these spring tabs here either side, and there's a couple of tabs here at the front, and if I can lift the mirror over that tab and slide it forward, we should be good to go. So I'll just see if I can slide my scalpel blade down behind the glass and push that mirror forward a bit. Did I achieve it? Yeah, it needs a bit more than that. I certainly lifted it. I don't really want to use the scalpel to push this because, well, it's glass, and glass tends to be a bit fragile. Let's see if I can move that forward. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I used a couple of toothpicks there, one to lift it up underneath. Now I can slide this mirror out. And this is surface silvered. I don't really want to touch that. You can clean them in the ultrasonic cleaner. I would say only do that in desperation, because the ultrasonic cleaner will clean the silver off. I'll put this carefully to one side where it won't get fingerprints on it. At the moment it's free from fingerprints. This haze that you can see on this front edge, that's where it's come in contact with this buffer pad here. It's not a serious issue at all. That's not really a problem. I'll put this mirror to one side now, and then I'll come back and start cleaning up this body. Well, I want to get rid of all of the rubbish off this body. The rubbish I'm talking about here is the old adhesive, fragments of leatherette, and corrosion products. And I'm using the back edge of my scalpel here and just lightly scraping this, and the stuff just comes off pretty easily. This is to make sure that I've got a nice clean surface when I go to glue the leatherettes back in place, and they'll stand their best chance of going back and lying flat and sticking. And this is why it was useful to take the mirror out first, because as you can see I'm generating a lot of dust and rubbish. That would inevitably fall on that mirror, and then I'd be trying to get it off the mirror without touching the silvered surface. And all that's just work that I don't need. I'll look at the state of the camera back at this stage to decide whether the leatherette there is showing any problems. I can certainly see it's loose at the edge, but it's not showing any bumps. It's not loose at the other end. So I'm not going to remove that and re-glue it. I'm just going to peel back that edge carefully, the loose edge, and glue that back. There's no percentage in looking for trouble. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So where do the corrosion products come from on the camera like this? Well, some of it will just be humidity. Atmospheric humidity will have caused that problem. The moisture would have just caused the metal underneath to corrode, and you're just seeing the corrosion products there. Some of it may be interaction between whatever chemicals were in the adhesive and the camera body. and some of it would have been not chemicals from the adhesive at all. It would have been skin oils and perspiration from handling. They're also great for corrosion, and they'd probably find their way through the leatherette in the fullness of time. So here I'm just cleaning up the base plate of the camera. And this was different on one side than the other because that base leatherette had been broken at this point. And half of it had been lifted off and half of it had not been lifted off. And so only half of it had been needed to be glued back down. It's difficult to understand why somebody would do that, given the state of the leatherette. It's not as though it was fragmented. Why they chose to only lift half the leatherette up, I'm blowed if I know. I'm sure it would not have been impossible at that time to lift the whole lot off. It may have been an accident. They may have been peeling the leatherette up, and they may have just flipped it too hard and it cracked. And they decided that they might just as well stop right there. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Right, well I'm going to clean my work surface now because as you can see it's all covered in dust and filth. And once I've got that clean I can come back and start cleaning this down with some naphtha. Right, so some naphtha to start cleaning this down. And I might just as well start here where I've cleaned the leatherette off. There's one useful point of cleaning this like this is if there's any roughness, if there's any lumps and bumps left, I'll feel them when I'm doing this. And then I can go back and deal with them with the appropriate instrument. Right. I'm starting the clean-up process from the outside in, if you like, because this is where most of the loose filth is, and I might as well get it off here before I clean the internal surfaces, which is where all the real work in the camera is done. This camera is quite good. It hasn't been to the beach. If it went to the beach, it was very carefully protected. A large number of cameras you come across, in fact the bulk of them, have been to the beach at some stage in their life, and they brought home some sand as a souvenir. This one doesn't appear to be, isn't full of sand. That's good. I'll just start at the top of the camera. Now the rewind end here, that was very oily. It's dried out grease there. The rewind must have been very heavily lubricated at some stage, and that grease is just sweated out on a hot day and run down inside, caused problems. You go through vast quantities of these things, so always buying, I buy about 10 packets at a time, clean out the supermarket. And you can see this is run all the way down the top of the body here from the end, and at this end this would be grease from the film advance mechanism. You can see that here I can be fairly free with the naphtha. If I had the mirror still in the body, I would have to be exceptionally cautious, because you wouldn't want any droplets of naphtha, particularly naphtha that's already picked up contaminants elsewhere, from settling on that mirror. Some of the staining you see on the top of the casting, that's going to be a permanent feature. That'll just be oxidisation of the metal, or it will be paint in some cases there. In the back of the camera body here, this is quite good. Frequently there'll be vast numbers of film chips at this point, where people have not set the frame counter correctly when they've loaded the film, got to the end of the film, and then stripped out the sprockets, the sprocket holes, the film between the sprocket holes. Right, so now I'll clean inside the front of the body here. That down. Now here's where the cam, you could call it a transfer shaft, that's where this rides in the body. That's usually fairly greasy, and you're removing the old grease not because you're wanting to remove grease in particular. Well, it's not good grease, it's dried out grease. It's often gone hard and dry, or it's gone to a sort of wax. It's pretty poor as a lubricant. Now I just pinged off a spring then when I was cleaning. It's this one here. You can see it, it's quite fine. Pop that back when I'm finished cleaning. That's on this little lever up here, the latch. Now the latch holds the mechanism in a cocked position. I'm just checking that everything at the top of the camera here is clean and there's nothing sticky. And likewise at the bottom. I'm just wiping these control arms here, not because they're particularly dirty, which I'm pleased to see, but it would tell me immediately if there was a problem with dried grease at that point. because that would make these sticky in operation. You do not want anything to be sticky here, they need to be free. They're moving under the action of springs down here at the base. It's not uncommon to have to disassemble those to get everything clean and working correctly, but I can tell you it's no fun. So I'm pleased that in this case they're all moving smoothly and freely. And looking at my camera body now, that's all looking quite good. I'm going to dust this out with a dry paintbrush and blow any remaining dust away, but I think that that's pretty much done now. Oh, I noticed this. I've got the spring and its keeper has come off the mechanism in here. There's an arm on this side which latches things down, and that spring should have been hooked to that arm at this point and held in place with that keeper. So I'll see if I can get this in place without a fight. Oh, that's a tui making that noise out there. Open the window so you can hear it better. This is just a bit awkward trying to get this spring through the hole and hooked over the arm it needs to hook onto. And I have to say it's not going smoothly. That's it. No, I just pulled it off. See if I can get that hook back in place again. I'll just remove this mask here, and you can probably see what I'm doing after that, or see what I'm attempting to do. There's two screws hold this little baffle in place. This baffle's curved because it follows the angle that the mirror swings down through. Right, so here in the body, I'll point to it, there's a little hook on that plate, and I've got to get a spring hooked over there, and then the other end of that spring drops through a hole in the casting, and a pin goes through on the outside. Of course it they're a funny song, those tuis. Right, I've got it. Now can I get the spring in position, the pin? Yeah, did it. So there's the pin that goes across there, and you can see it just holds the end of that spring. And you can see that spring's hooked over there. Now I'm not sure exactly how that come to fall out, to tell the truth, but it did. I must have hit something with my cotton bud while I was cleaning it. Right, well, I'll find that paintbrush now. There's a fair bit of dry dust here from the cleaning process, and I'm just shifting that with that paintbrush and blowing it away. And you need to start with a clean dry paintbrush, otherwise you'll end up wiping more dirt on than you're removing. That looks pretty good. There's a few spots on the body I think could do with a touch more cleaning. I think that will do. Now to get my spring back onto that lever. Here's my spring. Like fine springs ever were, it's awkward to get things to behave themselves. Get it over that boss. That's good, and that's working correctly. Right, well now I've got to gather up my mechanical pieces and put them through the ultrasonic cleaner. Likewise clean up these two top and bottom panels. And while they're percolating away in the ultrasonic cleaner, I'll put this baffle back in the body and then start work on that front plate, I think, and the mechanism in there. I'll just lift this baffle back in place and fix it down. Well, that's the idea anyway. That's one screw started, the other one immediately popped away. Those two screws tightened up. That's good. Now I can have a look at this front section. Now this should all be free running. It's got a return spring here. When this latches up, it should fly back to the rest position there. As you can see, it doesn't fly. Now there's the flash wire here, runs round inside a groove inside the casting. If that's displaced, that can rub on this ring and cause it to be sticky. That's not our problem, it's just sticky. So I'm going to start stripping a few things off here for cleaning. I'll start by removing the release mechanism here. There's 2 screws here. There's also a return spring. I'm holding my finger on this so it doesn't get away. Lift those 2 screws out. Now there's a return spring here in the body. Don't lose that. That's a pretty fine spring. Can you even see it there? Or is it? There it is. It's a very fine spring, easily lost. I'm just going to put these in a container so I've got them in front of me where they're less likely to get lost. This arm here, let's get that off. All of this is quite dusty here. It looks to me, it's grey. I think that's graphite powder. I think someone's thrown a bit of graphite powder around in here. There's that screw. Here's the arm. Now that's tucked under at this end, so be careful not to damage anything getting this unhooked. It's going to come out for me. Yes, it's just a matter of wriggling it in the appropriate direction. This arm here, there's a screw here holding a spring. It's a shoulder screw. It's a very fine spring. Pop that spring to one side. Now this arm, there's typically a washer underneath here. So watch for that. So undo that screw. It's a shoulder screw, much like the one across the way. Underneath the arm is a washer, a spacer washer. Don't lose that. Then that arm will lift off. We'll check the action here, see if that moves freely. Well, you can see that it doesn't. It's gummy. That should be returning freely under its own action there, and that's just doing nothing. So all of this needs to be cleaned. Now cleaning this is a bit of an act. Now, first thing I want to do here, so I'm going to remove that spring, take that off. This pinion here, get couples through to this arm, and this arm actually cocks the shutter in the camera. So what I want to do is make note of the position of that. So if this rings all the way that direction as far as it can go, what's the position of this arm? And you can see there that it's, if that's the axis there, it's at about 45 degrees. So what I want to do now is just take a photo of that so I know exactly where that is. Flip it over, take a photo of it from the other side so I know what position this ring was in exactly. And then when I put this back, because I've got to engage the teeth of course, I'll be able to engage it in the correct position so that the alignment is not lost. That's right, so rotating that clockwise as far as it can go. That's at about 45 degrees. Let me get my photo.